Alrighty, so welcome to the latest Thrones of Decay announcement, and I'm going to assume that most of you have probably seen this before I have. As of right now, it is Thursday afternoon, and this is actually my first chance to look at these. I've been looking forward to getting to this, but unfortunately I got pulled out of town for the last couple of days, so this is actually the first chance I have to look at it. Now, I will say I thought about reading through all this ahead of time and then coming up with a script and then basically making a shorter video that's just boiled down what my impressions are. But I've decided not to do that because looking just really quickly at the text here, I can see obviously they get into some specifics, but they put a lot of the lore and the theme into the way that they write it. And I kind of like experiencing that. So I'm actually going to be reacting to, sort of the thematic aspects as well as the functional aspects of this. So I just wanted to be upfront about that before I waste anybody's time, so you all know what this video is going to be like. It's probably going to ramble on for a little bit, so if that doesn't interest you, I'm sure that there are probably plenty of other better YouTubers out there who are going to give a more concise version of this than I will. But anyway, enough rambling, Michael. Let's go ahead and get into this. So as I mentioned, this is my first chance to really look at it. I did mention in the Kugath video that I uploaded last that right after the cinematic came out, the trailer came out, that's sort of like, for me, the most exciting time because boom, you get to see the cinematic trailers. Creative Assembly does a wonderful job, I think, with their cinematics. And everything is like full of hope and optimism. And so I'm pretty excited to find out what is going to be in here. That being the most exciting time, because then, unfortunately, realism sets in eventually. We find a few bugs. We find a few things that are implemented not quite the way that we wish that they would be. And so anyway, the enthusiasm does tend to wane just a little bit off of the high right after the cinematic trailer. So I'm not going to show the cinematic trailer in this video. It's really good, but there's plenty of other opportunities for you to see it. And of course, there are other people who know the lore better than I do, who can identify all the particular individuals in it. But anyway, let me go ahead and jump into what they write here. So greetings, Decay is rolling through the known world of Warhammer, and 3 new legendary lords have emerged to push ingenuity and conflict into a new dawn, alongside a suite of new units, lords, heroes, campaign mechanics, and more. That's exactly what I was hoping for when I did the video. In terms of my expectation is that this is going to be a really good DLC. Thrones of Decay, our latest paid expansion, will be arriving in Total War Warhammer 3 alongside Update 5.0, so that's good. Anybody who doesn't buy the expansion will, of course, get Update 5.0. I cannot imagine a world where I don't get the expansion because this does address a couple of factions that I am particularly interested in, those being Nurgle, which is probably my favorite faction, and Dwarves, which is one of my favorite factions. Anyway, as promised, you'll know exactly what's coming in Thrones of Decay before you see a Buy Now button, so let's unearth our latest arrivals, those of Invention, of Amethyst, and of Pestilence. Check out the announcement trailer below. Okay, so again, I'm assuming everybody has already seen that. I do just want to point out one thing. This is good that they're sticking to this, letting us know ahead of time what's coming, because obviously they've had sort of a rocky history as of late about what they're delivering. So I think that more transparency is definitely a good thing. Let's hope that they continue with that, and let's hope that they continue to listen to the feedback that users and customers have given them. Anyway, this week we're delving into the first legendary lord to arrive in Thrones of Decay, one of Nurgle's greatest champions, the infested master of hosts and bringer of desolation, the maggot lord himself, Tamurkhan. Now, I'm going to assume that they did this just for me. They know that Nurgle is my favorite faction, and so they wanted to make sure that the announcement about Tamurkhan here was the first one that they did. I can't see any other reasonable explanation for it. As the stuff of lie and legend, tales of the savage commander trail back for millennia, so it's best we set the record straight and meet an infested warlord for the ages. Yes, so let's do that. Tamurkhan the Maggot Lord. Tamurkhan is rumored to be many things: a monstrous warlord, an arrogant commander with Nurgle's favor, a hideous, mutated giant corpse maggot. Rumors aside, one thing is for certain, an army is gathering in his name, and even the elector counts themselves will have their resolve pushed to its breaking point when it arrives. So I like stuff like this because this already starts generating sort of creative ideas in my mind about both what the campaign's going to be like, but also sort of thematically a way to build armies and a way to approach the campaign. Because for me, I try not to approach every campaign as being just a conquer everything as fast as you can. You know, conquer the world, basically. So at a glance, here's what Tamurkhan brings to the table. Tank. The combined durability of an ogre infested with a corpse maggot of Nurgle makes this legendary lord tough to kill. Hard hitter. Wielding an axe with great bullish strength, this unit hits especially hard with high armor-piercing damage. Bubabolos. Tamurkhan can be mounted atop the unique toad Bubabolos for aid in combat and traversal. Tamurkhan's Chieftains, a unique campaign mechanic focused on recruiting the strongest warriors around and earning their fealty to achieve ultimate victory. As for the first two things, I mean, we've got melee lords in the game already. Obviously, we're going to have to see the stats and see the hitbox and, you know, try him out in combat to see how well he does. But I like a good melee lord, so I'm looking forward to testing him out. This right here, the unique mount, this is excellent. I really like the lords that have unique mounts. So, of course, I'm terrible with plague toads, so one can hope that I won't totally screw up moving him around on his plague toad mount, his toad dragon mount, but we'll see. Anyway, and then Tamurkhan's Chieftains. Okay, so we're going to learn more about that in a minute, I presume. As a true reveler in death and decay, Tamurkhan, the corpse maggot, once burrowed into the flesh of other mortals to become their puppet master, never finding the perfect match until now. Adoring the power that the mass and strength of an ogre body brings him, Tamurkhan drew attached to the only form he commands today, the body of the ogre tyrant, Karaka Break Mountain. Okay, very good, makes sense. On the battlefield, Tamurkhan has a suite of abilities at his disposal. First up, Feast of the Maggot Lord, a passive ability only triggered upon his death as a last-ditch attempt to cling onto the margins, deliver serious damage to the victim, outright killing those below a certain health threshold, and granting Tamurkhan a second win to get back into the fray. So I'm going to assume that this is an automatic one-time thing that triggers, or I should maybe say one time per battle, I would guess. So that's an interesting effect. It's obviously seriously lacking in specifics here, so we don't know what the health threshold is. When it says second wind, we don't know exactly what that means in terms of how much health he recovers or whether it gives him any additional buffs or anything like that. Well, actually, no, I guess maybe we will find out right here. With Nurgle's favored son, no, that's not the same thing, I don't think, as Feast of the Maggot Lord. Okay, so this is a different buff. With Nurgle's favored son, this active ability grants him melee defense and increased ward save. I love both of those. And the Rotting Host passive ability decreases the weapon strength and leadership of those within 35 meters of Tamurkhan, the latter of which can blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's all crossed out. So that's there for sort of, I guess, giggles. We've spoken to Tamurkhan about this, and it turns out that all rear-facing expulsions have in fact ceased. Sorry for any confusion/repulsion. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I'm just as happy there not being any fart mechanics in this game. Okay. For those that still dare face the Maggot Lord, his Black Cleaver active item will ensure they regret it, granting magic attacks, significantly increased armor-piercing damage, and a boost to weapon damage, base weapon damage for all allies within range. Okay, so it's just another buff. That's fine. We'll have to see, again, specific numbers once it comes out, I suppose. Okay, the Chieftains, here we go. With the body of Karaka Break Mountain as his own, his knowledge is matched only by his strength, and he will use both to gather the strongest warriors the world has ever seen and adopt them into his own twisted army, absorbing the many strengths of those that could not defeat him. Tamurkhan can gain the fealty of many chieftains from various cultures of the Warhammer world and unify them under a single banner, his banner. Okay, I really like this. This is a unique mechanic. This is something that I can't think of anything terribly similar with any of the existing legendary lords, so I like it. I do like things that are unique. Some of these buffs, for example, I don't really think of them as being particularly unique. But this I quite like. And so it says many chieftains from various cultures of the Warhammer world, but it doesn't identify which ones. I'm going to assume it's not all of them. But so I'll be very curious to find out which ones you can draw from. Okay. Using his 2 key resources, dominance and fealty, Tamurkhan can decide how best to manage his acquired chieftains. Dominance, the main resource, is gained from winning battles. This must be spent to acquire chieftains, activate their abilities, and add their units to his own recruitment pool. Okay, I like that. This is another resource for him to manage. I do like that. This kind of reminds me of like the Chaos Dwarves and the additional resources that they had to start to manage. It's an additional layer of complexity that's not going to appeal to everybody, but I like to see it in there for at least a few factions or at least a few legendary lords if you're in the mood for something a little bit different, a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex than the regular. Okay, the fealty of a chieftain is increased by taking action that said chieftain approves of, whether it be raiding settlements, razing cities to the ground, or wiping various opposing forces off the map. For example, if Tamurkhan seeks a devoted chieftain from the Chaos Dwarves, he'd best express the same hatred for the Skaven as they do. Okay, again, I really like that. Very thematic. And so if there are repercussions, if there's trade-offs where if you don't do it the right way, then you could have some serious problems. I don't know whether the chieftains would abandon you or what, but maybe they're just less effective in combat or something like that, or I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So but anyway, I like that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the hero mechanic for the Vampire Coast, where the different heroes that you get, or no, it's the different lords that you get have different mechanics, have different wants that they expect you to do in order to get their loyalty. So kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but it's obviously very much different as well. Okay. When their fealty increases, Tamurkhan can reap the benefit. Okay, so this is good. It's telling us. Can reap the benefits and favor units and special abilities, culminating in a mighty thematic quest battle on his path to gaining boundless loyalty from these great warriors. Great. Love it. Okay. It's going to remain to be seen how the quest battle is actually implemented, but I do like a good thematic quest battle for sure. Okay. Kayzk the Befouled, legendary hero Kayzk the Befouled, Kurgan, champion of Nurgle, serves as a living memory of what Nurgle's blessing can do to a soul. Great. Love it. This mighty Chaos champion gave everything to Nurgle, losing his voice to Nurgle's rot. Interesting. And sacrificing his form so that he could stand alongside Tamurkhan as a mass of corrupted flesh in service of the Lord of Decay. Being one of the first to join Tamurkhan's banner, Kayzk swept through the Chaos Waste as his chief lieutenant, commanding his own infested gang of horsemen with the Rot Knights, who we'll be meeting shortly. Okay, very good. So I'm going to assume legendary hero. I'm going to assume that you don't start with him, but maybe you do. Maybe you do, or maybe he's going to be available to the other Nurgle factions as well. Remains to be seen unless they explain it here. In battle, Kayzk is a tank. His health regenerates. Okay, love regeneration. His health regenerates in combat, and thanks to his corrupted flesh passive ability, he's granted an increased ward save. Love ward save. When above a certain health threshold, making him harder to fell. Always mounted atop a Rot Beast, Kayzk has access to Befouled Charge, a passive that triggers when charging, of course, granting himself and nearby allies increased speed and an increased charge bonus, while stripping the enemy of their charge defense versus large attributes. Okay, that sounds really, really good. Now, I will say, for those of you who watch any of my campaigns, I'm terrible with cavalry, so I'm looking forward to totally screwing him up as well. Plus, with his Sword of Filth item, Kayzk can spread decay to those he strikes, afflicting them with decreased melee defense and armor. Spread the curse in his name. Okay, so another debuff here. So he sounds quite effective, but again, we won't really know for sure until we see him and see the numbers and then see him in action. But I'm certainly looking forward to trying him out. This is interesting. This passive ability, this Befouled Charge, the passive ability that triggers when charging. So I like that. That's kind of unique. Okay, Chaos Lord of Nurgle. So now we're getting into the generic lords for Nurgle. So I don't really feel like this was the most important thing to do with a Nurgle rework. More options is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned, but I didn't feel like, of all the problems with the Nurgle campaign, that a lack of choices in terms of lords was one of them. But then again, what do I know? Okay, Chaos Lord of Nurgle. I'm certainly not going to say no. Like I said, more choices, more options is always good. Having earned the great favor of the Lord of Decay, the Chaos Lord of Nurgle stands as a generic lord to the Chaos God with skills only held by the very best of Chaos warriors who leave nothing but rot in their wake. With a sword, shield, and a variety of mounts a variety of mounts. That's interesting. At their disposal, the Chaos Lord of Nurgle leads as a durable and beefy warrior with an increased health pool. Okay, again, Nurgle's kind of already got this, but it's fine. As a debilitating unit, this lord inflicts poison damage and fear upon the enemy. That's good. I like that. Nice and thematic. While buffing nearby troops by spreading leadership and melee damage reflection bonuses to them with Rot or Die. But who could forget the weapon he seeks? The Father of Blades, rumored to be the first sword ever forged. Okay, I have a question about this, but let me finish reading. Is an active augment that the Chaos Lord of Nurgle can acquire to increase his armor-piercing damage and reduce the melee attack of nearby foes. Okay, so this is a little bit weird to me. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding something, but this is a generic lord. You could have more than one of these generic lords. Moreover, different factions can probably all have these Chaos Lords. But yet it's talking about the Father of Blades, rumored to be the first sword ever forged. This is a unique item. So it's a unique item that every Chaos Lord of Nurgle can get. Something about that seems a little bit strange to me, but like I said, maybe I'm just missing something. Anyway, it doesn't spoil my excitement, at least not yet. Okay, so we now have Chaos Sorcerers of Nurgle. Powerful spellcasters capable of harnessing the raw winds of magic have found themselves at home with the Lord of Decay's troops as the Chaos Sorcerers of Nurgle, a new generic hero. Okay, what's different about them than what we already have? With access to both the Lord of Nurgle and the Lore of Death, and like the many units of Nurgle before them, these debilitating casters boast poison attacks and the fear attribute. They also serve the armies of Nurgle as healers, with access to various means of regenerating their allies, making them a vital asset on the field. Okay, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by this. Again, I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually see it in action, but yeah, Nurgle's already got heroes and lords that have access to the Lore of Nurgle and the Lore of Death, so we're not really getting anything new here. Now, this gives you access to both, whereas before you had to choose one or the other. But I don't feel like this is really a game changer for Nurgle. Moreover, the poison attacks and the fear attribute, that's nice, kind of thematic as well. But they also serve the armies of Nurgle as healers. That's interesting because I kind of feel like Nurgle's got healing through other methods as well, unless that's being changed. But anybody who's got the Lore of Nurgle has got Fleshy Abundance. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. Once you get to a certain rank, you can get Fleshy Abundance. So I never, because I always prioritize that, I always feel like healing is really not so much an issue with my Nurgle armies. It's more the ability to do damage that is often an issue. But anyway, we'll move on here. Pestigores, okay. Blessed since birth by Nurgle, the Pestigores of disease and pestilence serve their god with the trademark vigor of their fellow beastkin, alongside the infested, oozing, bloated skin from the mark of Nurgle. Very nice, very thematic. In the heat of battle, as well as debilitating their foes, Pestigores stand firm with their own durable skin and muscle, sporting a high health pool for an infantry unit. Again, feel like Nurgle's already got lots of infantry units that have high health pools. With their weapon of choice, a two-handed great axe, the Pestigores are masters at smashing it through armor, piercing it with a single strike. Okay, so that's good, but when they did add some additional like Chaos Warriors with great weapons to the Nurgle roster, we did finally have some AP already. Okay, so that leads me to a question here. Is this a Nurgle unit? Is this a Beastman unit? Is this a Warriors of Chaos unit? Or is it all of the above or some of the above? Wonder if it says here. I guess I should keep reading. It's pondered that the most high esteemed of Pestigores are blessed with a mutation, the Tears of Nurgle. This passive chain hex may only be triggered once, activating when within range of an enemy unit, resulting in infectious secretions from every orifice that slow the opposition down before spreading through their ranks. This makes them a prime candidate for Vanguard deployment, another intrinsic trait of the Pestigores. Okay, that I really like a lot. That it's going to take a little bit of micromanaging, but if you can do the micro, I can see how that could be a really effective tactic in battle. I like it, and plus it does make them a little bit unique. Okay. They don't follow the pack, they lead it. That's good. All right. Plague Ogres, perhaps taking inspiration from the visage of their commander, Tamurkhan. The Plague Ogres are twisted amalgamations of a once ordinary ogre, with both body and mind contorted by the blessings of Nurgle. Joining Tamurkhan in his pursuit of the Empire, Plague Ogres are brutish humanoids that fell in battle at his hands before accepting the Lord of Decay's power. In return for their lives, they grew fat with infestation and disease. Certainly very thematic, okay? Serving Nurgle as sluggish yet durable infantry, the Plague Ogres seek out large enemies that with either their giant blades or great axes to slice them to ribbons, okay? Again, it's more melee infantry, sort of monstrous melee infantry. Again, Nurgle's already got plenty of those, but more options are good. More units are good. I can't wait to see them in, up close in a battle. They're built for punishment, okay? Rot Knights, here we go. Wonder how fast these are going to be. Rot Knights are one of the select few Chaos Knights blessed with the Mark of Nurgle and the power to ride rot beasts into battle. Although the Chaos armor they wear has grown rusty with time, the Rot Knights, a new monstrous cavalry unit for Nurgle, can still take a beating, sacrificing some of their speed for thicker skin with increased health, defense, and regeneration abilities. Okay, like all of those, particularly defense and especially particularly regeneration. The goal of a Rot, however, they really, they can take a beating, sacrificing some of their speed. That concerns me a little bit because speed is definitely an issue already for Nurgle. And increased health, defense, and regeneration, those are all defensive traits. They'd better have some punch to them as well because Nurgle really needs some good shock cavalry. I have a feeling these, well, let's keep reading. Okay, the goal of a Rot Knight is to lock down large targets on the battlefield and shred their health thanks to their giant claws and a one-handed lance delivering potent anti-large attacks. Okay, so that's their usefulness right there. That's good. That's good. With regeneration, the Rot Knights have a weakness to flame but can regain their health over time and enjoy an increase to their melee defense when in the heat of battle. Yeah, definitely. Bile Trolls, okay. These are I'm going to like this, I have a feeling. I have a soft spot for Trolls. I'm not sure why because they've typically not been great units, especially in Warhammer 2, but I just like them. I like them. I think they're kind of thematic and cool. Okay, anyway. Under the shadows of the Chaos Waste, Nurgle sets its sights on these trolls. Nurgle set its sights on these trolls, infecting their flesh and burrowing deep into their guts, gifting them with a blessing that should have consumed them. What remained was a bulbous monstrosity, a bile troll, endlessly eating itself alive from the inside out, only to regenerate and devour itself once more. This is why I'm reading everything, because I like verbiage like this. I appreciate the sort of the word craft that they've done. There's pretty good writing here. And again, very thematic, and it kind of generates these images in your mind. Okay, this blessing is a boon to their inherent passive regeneration in combat, letting them shrug off wounds as they strip their own damaged skin and replace it anew. With poison attacks on their side, the Bile Trolls can strike fear in any foe they approach and can pierce straight through their armor with their one-handed blade. Okay, very good. Okay, with all that infestation going on beneath the surface, the Bile Trolls can expel it with the corrosive bile hex effect. Okay, so this is a la Throg, softening the armor and flesh of their opponents and plummeting their victims' melee defense for an easy kill. Okay, I wonder how many uses of that you'll get. Okay, share their curse at your own risk. Huh, okay. Toad Dragon, here we go. The true horror of Nurgle doesn't just lie within the bellies of its rotten soldiers, but also within the reptilian nightmare that often dwells in the northern wastes of the known world. The Toad Dragon, a rare-sighted monster for Nurgle, brings a thoughtless level of hunger and violence to anything that crosses its path, melting flesh with its breath or squashing victims flat with its weight. Okay, I like that. I like the idea of a Nurglish dragon. And of course, this is Bubabolos. This is the unique one that Tamurkhan gets to ride on. With the help of its cruel anatomy, the Toad Dragon swipes through armor with its thick claws and lashes out at targets with its proboscis tongue, snatching them from their hiding places and reeling them into its gaping maw. Those, however, are the lucky ones. This large hulking creature specializes in smashing through even the... Okay, so we saw one of these guys in the cinematic. I guess maybe we saw the one that may have... I can't remember the cinematic exactly. Okay, anyway, this large hulking creature specializes in smashing through even the most compact of formations and holds its place within Nurgle as their largest, most expensive unit to date. Bigger than the Great Unclean Ones. Interesting. With heavy missile resistances, the Toad Dragon borders on unkillable, but it's what lies within that truly makes it something to be feared. With its active ability, Unspeakable Foulness, the Toad Dragon spews forth a blast of flesh-rotting horror, delivering explosive damage and inflicting poisonous burns on its victims as their skin slips off in sheets and their organs turn to liquid. That sounds fairly nasty. We'll have to see what that actually does on the battlefield. Sounds pretty bad, though. Decay is but the least of their worries. Okay, here we go. This is really important. Nurgle Legacy updates. I guess just before I dive into that, I approve. Again, we're going to have to kind of, or at least I'm going to have to mess around a little bit to figure out exactly how uniquely to make these guys fit into the armies. But as I've always said, more choices are good. Particularly like the idea of getting some shock cav, even if they're really only specializing in anti-large attacks. We'll have to see how they do, how fast they truly turn out to be. And of course, it's Toad Dragon I'm looking forward to checking out. But anyway, very good. I approve of the units. I'm reasonably excited about those. Now, here's what makes me a little bit nervous. Let's find out what the Nurgle Legacy updates are. Before we wrap up this grim tale of Tamurkhan and all things Nurgle, we wanted to address something that's important to both us and you, our players. We've taken in lots of your feedback from our prior DLC regarding Legacy race updates, and we're committed to making the rejuvenation of those races' core mechanics a key element within the release of Thrones of Decay. Okay, this is good. This is good. It's been long enough. With that in mind, here's what we've cooked up to enhance Nurgle as a whole for the Grandfather's Lords, both present and future. Plagues. Okay, they're changing up plagues. Plagues have been completely reworked from the ground up, impacting Kugath, Festus, and Tamurkhan. Okay, well, not just them. There's another one. There's another lord coming, Epidemius, right? Here's a sneak peek at the new plague system. Okay, I can't really... here's the video. Okay, well, we get to see this tentacle-like things popping up, so that's interesting. That's interesting. What is the issue with the current system? The problem with the original system for plagues is that it was completely solvable. As a player, there was an objectively strongest route to take and no need to deviate from it to maximize the benefits and minimize the drawbacks. This took away from the Nurgle fantasy of experimenting with disgusting new diseases that we want players to feel. I love this. Good on them for recognizing that. So yeah, I like trade-offs in games. I don't like it when there's always not necessarily a right or a wrong way to do it, but you just kind of get into a tendency where you're always doing things the same way. Okay, anyway, what are we changing? Plague symptoms now exist within a web with certain symptoms connected to each other, letting you combine 3 of them to create a plague. Excellent, I like that. The UX has been redesigned to better showcase how this plague will affect both Nurgle and non-Nurgle factions. A positive for Nurgle, negative for everyone else. Okay, I feel like that was not really that hard to figure out before. The symptoms location within the plague web will shift with every 3 plagues. Okay, interesting. So it's shifting around the locations. So your first plague may allow for a connection between symptoms granting casualty, replenishment, growth, and recruitment health, but on the next cycle, those symptoms could be nowhere near each other and you'll have to conjure new plagues from what's available to you. As a result, special combinations have been removed. Interesting. So does that mean that you unlock a plague and then all of a sudden you lose access to that plague when the next cycle occurs? I don't know. We'll find out. We're introducing a new type of symptom, blessed symptoms. These are assigned randomly and change with every plague cycle, and a symptom, while blessed or blessed, has its effects doubled. Okay, that's cool. I like that. Plagues can now be mutated with increased effects, increasing the spread chance, extending the duration, and much more. I'm looking forward to finding out what much more means, because the spread chance, the extra 1 or 2% that we were seeing in the technology tree for Nurgle was always quite underwhelming for me. Extending the duration, that certainly could be good, but again, it depends on, like I usually in my campaigns end up having plenty of infections where it's not a big deal for me to keep reapplying them. So I guess we'll see whether or not the extended duration is going to turn out to be a big deal or not. Plagues now have an immunity period so that those on the receiving end of being plagued aren't constantly under its effects and have a respite between bouts. Okay, I like that as well. Even though that's a nerf, that weakens Kayzk a little bit. I do like that. I think it's thematic. I think it makes sense, and it forces you to be a little more strategic in how you apply your plagues instead of just hitting them over and over again to keep them constantly plagued. Yeah, you're going to have to consider your timing. I like it. Kayzk Plaguefather greatly benefits from this system. He is uniquely able to have many blessed symptoms active at once, allowing him to conjure much more fearsome diseases than his peers and decimate the world with unholy infectious combinations. Okay, that's cool. I like that. That makes sense for Kayzk Plaguefather, and it gives me a reason to go ahead and play him again. Helman Gorse is going to wish he'd set up shop elsewhere. Well, I want to believe that that's true, but I'll believe it when I see it. What is the issue with the current system? Cyclical buildings. Okay, I actually kind of like the cyclical buildings, so let's see what they change and see whether I like it or don't. Nurgle's unique cyclical buildings has led to some unique and thematic gameplay strategies when it comes to recruitment, but we felt it had a negative impact on their economy and defense capabilities. Well, in the short term, I agree with that. In the long term, I don't really agree with that. What are we changing? Military buildings are still cyclical, but all remaining buildings are now static like the other factions in the game. Okay, I have mixed feelings about that. The infrastructure buildings, I kind of liked just building them once and knowing that it would cycle through for me. But let's keep reading. Military buildings now cost infections instead of okay, huge right there. Military buildings now cost infections instead of treasury to help with managing the choice between improving infrastructure and recruiting forces. Okay, that's good. That's really good. It's another resource to have to manage in this. This is going to be interesting, having to juggle infections now for this in addition to your plagues. And yeah, managing the choice between improving infrastructure and recruiting. So, and recruiting for. Okay, let's keep reading here. We have done an economy pass on the buildings following this change to help with Nurgle's difficult financial situation, allowing players to choose the treasury building rather than having their economy gain split between all chains. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I'll have to see it in action, of course, but kind of like with the Skaven, you get a little bit of money from all of your different buildings. That's how Nurgle was as well, except Nurgle, each building got more than what the Skaven got, except that it got more or less as it cycled up and down. So this will be interesting. This will be quite interesting to see how it plays out. Resource buildings have had effect overhaul. Okay, that's fine. That's kind of interesting because if it takes away the ability to just recruit extra. First of all, let me just say, I like the idea of having different resources provide different effects instead of just the generic effect that Nurgle gets right now. Having said that, the generic effect that Nurgle gets right now out of resource buildings is tremendously powerful. So if that is taken away from it, this is probably likely to be a big nerf. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I'm going to, withhold judgment until I actually see what the new effects are. But that's a humongous change. Cult buildings have undergone an effect pass. Okay, yeah, that's good because the cults were almost a throwaway. I pretty much only ever built a single cult building, and they were useful to get a little bit of extra infections, but really, didn't have to really think very much about them. Okay, so anyway, the remaining cyclical buildings can now be rushed by spending infections. Okay, I like that too. This is good. This is giving more complexity, but also more to juggle, so more strategic decisions to have to make, which is, I think, a good thing. What's the issue with the current system? Okay, this is recruitment. Nurgle's recruitment is currently too punishing for the benefit of instant recruitment. Well, yes and no. Again, in the short term, it's incredibly punishing. In the long term, it's really not, because you get to the point where of course, everything's really expensive, so maybe that's what they mean. But being able to recruit from a pool, once you're in the mid game, you pretty much have the ability to kind of summon up an entire army in one turn, which is quite powerful. Okay, anyway, what are we changing? Recruitment costs and recruitment health are now tied to the Nurgle corruption level of the province that the military force. Ooh, I like this. Okay. Tied to the Nurgle corruption level of the province that the military force is recruiting in. 30% health at 0 corruption. Okay. 60% health and minus 50% recruit cost at 100 corruption. Okay. I really like that idea. Now, I would have thought maybe it made more sense to say at 0 corruption, 30% health, and additional recruit cost instead of reducing. It works out to being the same thing. It's just the way you word it. But anyway, so minus 50 recruitment costs. So things are going to be half as expensive at 100 corruption as they would be at 0 corruption. Okay. Now, I like that idea. It's going to really come down to how expensive are they when, as a basic cost. Okay. With the addition of Russian construction, cyclical buildings should help with filling up recruitment pools in the early game. Okay. So yes, that makes sense. So you can rush them. Yeah, you can rush them with infections, and then you also. Okay. Yeah. Very good. I'm interested to see how all this plays out, but it's definitely adding an additional layer of complexity to the Nurgle recruiting, which I approve of. Technology tree. By the way, I'm just going to mention this as an aside, and I know this is already running very, very long, but I'm just going to throw this out there. I really liked the idea that was in Thrones of Britannia of when you hire in new units, they are not recruited instantly at full strength. I really wish that somebody would make a mod to do that with Warhammer, because I really like the idea of doing that. I don't love the idea of being able to just boom, 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 especially the AI. Boom, 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 couple turns, they've got a 20 stack at full health. And so I really liked the idea of needing to recruit them in at partial strength. And that would sort of, thematically be explained by the need to train new units. But anyway, that was just something that I really liked in Thrones of Britannia. That's kind of like how it is with Nurgle, and he's really the only faction that does it that way. Okay, anyway, technology tree. What are the issues with the current system? Oh boy, where to start with this? Nurgle's technology tree is lacking a clear direction and was designed too heavily around Kugath's Realms of Chaos experience. Yes, I've been saying this since basically the first time I ever played Nurgle in Immortal Empires. Basically, I've always said Kugath has migrated down to the southern part of the map, but his tech tree did not make the migration with him. So that tech tree is just rubbish, basically. Okay, so I'm glad they're changing. Nurgle's technology tree is now split into 2 distinct groups, one focused on military and the other on campaign faction bonuses. Okay, that's cool. I like that. The layout has also been reworked to make it clearer and easier to progress through the technology tree. Okay, we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. Now, I'm curious about things like Kugath is no longer starting up in the Frozen Wastes, and so there's no reason to, and he's not like fighting Kislev right away. He's not like bordering Tzeentch. So all of those early techs in the tech tree are basically worthless for Kugath. Now, there's going to be new legendary lords, so I don't want to say that they're going to be worthless for those as well, but I'll be very curious to see quite how all this gets reworked. Okay, and then, don't get me wrong, it makes sense for Nurgle to have a technology that gives him buffs against Tzeentch. I'm not disparaging that. It just didn't make any sense for it to be like within the first part of the technology tree for Kugath, because it's mid-game at the earliest before you would ever even encounter them. Okay, so what are the issues with the current system? Army abilities. Previously, Nurgle gained army ability points based on the amount of damage taken. Okay, yeah. We felt that this didn't reward Nurgle players enough and seemed like a consolation prize for losing units. Okay, well, I rarely lose units, but I get what they're saying here. What are we changing? Nurgle now gains a passive income of army ability points for every enemy unit in the battle map that is currently being affected by a negative effect or debuff. Love it. Okay, yes, that's much more thematic, and it also gives you a reason to focus on the debuffs, which quite frankly ought to be very thematic for Nurgle. So this plays into Nurgle's play style of spreading debuffs and contact effects and make them even more desirable for both campaign and battles. Good. Like that a lot. Okay. We're confident that these changes are going to enhance the Nurgle experience for everyone who plays them, whether you're scorching the lands with disease as Kugath, harvesting souls for Nurgle as Festus, or gathering an army of chieftains as Tamurkhan. Okay. And just maybe there's one more legendary Lord of Nurgle waiting in the wings, ready to be unleashed in update 5.0. That's why it's not mentioned here, because he's a free LC. Okay. But for now, I reckon we've cataloged enough plagues to keep even Grandfather Nurgle himself happy. So let's see what we've got coming up next. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to bother to read that. We'll talk about that when the next announcement comes out. So this video has already gone long enough, but let me just summarize here, and I'll add timestamps. Maybe I should probably record this at the very beginning. I'll add this to the very beginning as well. But basically, yeah, just so that people can jump to whatever part that they're interested in. Anyway, yeah, my thoughts are I like it. I guess I would say cautiously optimistic. Thematically, I really like what they're saying. We're going to have to see how it's implemented. It doesn't change absolutely everything about the Nurgle experience, but that's fine with me because I still quite liked Nurgle. He's still going to be more of a defensive turtling faction, it seems like. We're going to have to see how these new units and these new lords add value. If they're really not doing anything that other lords and units weren't already doing, then it's a little bit disappointing. But for sure, the legendary lord and hero are definitely very thematic, very unique. I'm looking forward to those. Things that are unique are basically really the things that get me the most excited. So I think there's a lot here. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Yeah, there's a lot here that I'm quite looking forward to. So I'm going to have to maybe do a poll or something to find out which of the new lords folks would like me to try out right away, because I'm definitely going to try one of them right away. Maybe I could even foresee starting multiple campaigns right away, but I don't know. We'll play that by ear. So, all right. Well, hopefully some of you are still with me. Hopefully you found some of this interesting. I appreciate you riding along on this journey with me as I read through all this stuff for the first time. But yeah, I think that there's a lot here to like. It's possible, because I haven't had time to really digest it all yet, it's possible I'm forgetting something important, but please let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if I've forgotten some pretty important things, but I do feel like this is going to make a lot of people more interested in playing Nurgle moving forward. So again, let me know what you think, and I guess at this point I will say thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.